The reality of American healthcare is that it is a buyer beware circumstance. The patient needs to be their own best advocate. The paternalistic idea that the physician knows best is accurate in most cases, but not in all cases. There are too many times that healthcare leads to more healthcare, which leads to more healthcare, which leads to more healthcare. And there are too many patient medication lists that are double digits because they've gone to this provider and this. That is the way the system is set up right now.
How many times have you been arrested, and what was it for?
So when I was 18, I think, I got arrested for a fight, and that was the charge for that was criminal damage.
Ultimately, initially it was an assault charge. Like you pleaded it down to criminal damage.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know what the initial charge was. They could have charged me with anything, but eventually it was criminal damage, which was a misdemeanor. And then in 1998 or 99, I got arrested for marijuana, which we've talked about extensively.
To elaborate on that a little bit, it wasn't just a little bit of marijuana.
No, the newspaper published the amount as 1,000 pounds. I mean, I never owned, never bought, never sold 1,000 pounds of marijuana. Yeah, it was for marijuana, and it was for, the charge wound up being attempted possession of marijuana for sale. I think the initial charge was possession of marijuana greater than 4 pounds.
How many times have people gotten hurt under your care? What do you think your complication rate is?
I think I have a low complication rate overall, but I mean, they definitely stick out. Some more than others, but I think my complication rate is quite low. On average, like the complication rate for an angiogram is like 2%. I think I'm well under that. But yeah, the ones that have happened really, they just cripple you during the time.
How many people have died under your care?
Like died on the table?
Or, shortly thereafter, attributable to?
I think just one.
What happened with that one?
She had a retroperitoneal hematoma that we got under control. And then part of getting under control was holding pressure, and that restricted flow to the left lower extremity. When I saw that flow was restricted, I went in and opened that up. And then she dropped her blood pressure toward the end of the case. We transferred her to the hospital. She stabilized, but then that night in the ICU, very early in the morning, her daughter said that she described cloudiness in her vision, and then she stopped talking, and then she coded. The record's pretty, looking back at the hospital record, it's kind of patchy. Like there were never pressors administered. Some of this basic stuff that you would think would happen, didn't happen. But yeah, we lost her that night.
The medical board, I think, took issue with how long it took to get her over to a hospital.
So there were two different evaluations that took place. In the first one, the medical board's issue was how long it took for me to sign the note. That it was a year after the procedure before I signed that note. What they didn't know is that I never had access to the EHR.
Let's talk about the second one, the second half of that too. That their point was that there was, I think the way their expert said it was like, in your zeal to restore flow, you were delayed in some fashion to her deterioration.
Right, and that's what the board consultant summarized based upon a note that was not written by me, but was written by a person who was suing me at the time. And so that the board medical consultant determined that there had been a delay in transferring that patient. And just to be clear, that patient was like a mother, or like a mom to me. So based upon the note from written by the person who was suing me at the time, the board medical consultant determined that there was a delay.
Do you feel like there was a delay?
No, I would not have allowed a delay. The pressures were responding to appropriate fluid resuscitation. As soon as the appropriate fluid resuscitation seemed to no longer be working and she didn't look well, I myself said, call 911 now, get her going. And I was very urgent about get her out from here where we don't have blood products to a location that has blood products. So no, I do not believe that the transfer was delayed. However, she died. There's absolutely no way that I can ever feel right about that. I didn't think that I should be censured, but I bet everybody that gets censured probably thinks that they shouldn't be censured. I felt like there were certain things that the board mentioned that were 100% accurate. That I was very bad at my documentation in prescribing controlled substances and prescribing to coworkers and people who were not in the EHR, 100% accurate. I felt like the finding that my care had fallen below a community standard in the case of the case we were just talking about, I felt like that was incredibly unfair, primarily because that opinion was based upon documentation that didn't have anything to do with the reality of what took place. It was a manufactured document. The worst nightmare that I could ever have would be to have my license revoked. And I think I practice medicine in a way that would never warrant revocation of a license. But the censure thing, yeah, that really was, I guess, surprising. But there were certain points that they were 100% right on. So I can't pretend to be a babe in the woods and I did nothing wrong. That would be inaccurate.
There may be things happening elsewhere in the company that you're not privy to, and some of these allegations are coming out. You're part of a company, you're wrapped up in a company that is accused of not always doing the right thing.
I think that the accusations that I can independently either validate or completely refute are all 100% wrong. Like, this could all be just a kind of a conspiracy from people who have an interest in modern vascular being punished. You know what? Where there's smoke, there's fire. When there's this many things that are being claimed, there's got to be some part of it that's true. And that's not scientifically or intellectually accurate. You have to evaluate each thing on its own, and the sheer volume doesn't invoke veracity.